expected in my life to be homeless.
Myself, Asia, how did you get here? I mean, because my family had never lived in a homeless shelter. I knew nothing about shelters or anything like that. And I was devastated. I was literally devastated.
And I believe that it can happen to anyone. I became frozen in time, actually, when I became homeless. It took a little while for that to happen, but I think that's what's happening to so many people today across the country, at little towns, big towns. People that never expected to be homeless are ended up living in their car. They're living in rest areas along the highways, I-5. They are couch surfing with their sister.
Okay, the popular belief is that most people that are at the shelter are basically people that are unemployable, people with substance abuse problems, people that are mentally ill, people that are right out of prison. And contrary to that belief, we do have, in the last couple of years, some of the people here at the shelter do have degrees, some of the people don't have criminal records, some of them have just made bad decisions, financial decisions. They lost their job due to something out of their control, and their unemployment ran out.
Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and they're going to be here. But there are other people that just need a little bit of help. They're not drug addicts, they're not alcoholics, they just lost their job, and they wind up at the homeless shelter. Everybody's 2 paychecks away from losing their home and their job, you know. So people that are here don't ask to be homeless necessarily, but they wind up here anyway. You know, with the economy like it is anyway, I mean, people are being homeless every day. They're losing mortgages and losing homes and being upside down in their houses and stuff like that.
For 15 years, I became very successful. I got my dream of working hard. Got my dream of a waterfront home with 2 hot tubs, one inside, one outside, 3 cars, 3 boats, a nice big bayliner, and then a ski boat that bobbed up and down in front of my waterfront home. I had trips. I went to Rome, I went to Paris, I went to Greece, I saw Ephesus, Santorini. In Monte Carlo, I stayed at the Hotel de Paris. I had my dream. Everything that I thought a man of my age wanted, needed. That's who I was. Sports writer before I was a successful businessman. I covered the Cincinnati Reds when they had Pete Rose and Johnny Bench, and I covered tennis when there was John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors. I covered golf when covered Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, and I shook the hand of people like Muhammad Ali. My job to make them into heroes. But I spoke over at Microsoft Corporation here not too long ago. Admit to them was that, first of all, I don't have a computer, which I still don't. Technology of software came along that indeed put, to help hospitals operate better, to do everything else. One of the things they did was put the type of information I was doing online. This wonderful change in the culture and society was happening. I was beginning to fail. Now, I didn't know it. I was beginning to fail. I thought if I could just work harder and do better, working more hours, I would change. I would be able to continue to keep this dream of a rich man going. It wouldn't take long before I would lose my dream, lose everything. My wife would leave because she could not stand the stress of all the losses. It wouldn't be long before my friends that called me the man who has everything didn't want to see me. My family would look at me differently because I was no longer this successful person. My wife left about 3 months before I was evicted. She didn't want to be evicted. She was frightened. She was getting, as I was, frightened. I became frozen in time, and as many people do when they become homeless, they become frozen in time for a little bit. They can no longer jump over the hurdles or problem solve the things that they did before.
When you're drowning and somebody throws you a life raft, you don't look at the life raft, you just grab it. And when you get yourself back on the sand and you start looking at the life raft, you get the water out your lungs, you can breathe again, then you realize that this is what saved me.
They're people who, a lot of them have had a lot of difficult things happen to them in their lives, and so without the help to move past those things, they're never going to be able to make it on their own. They need the support.
Back in 1992, 91, I was living in Los Angeles, and I had my own business there. The Lord told me that my first husband was dying of AIDS. I told my oldest daughter, she wouldn't talk to him. He said, your mother's crazy, so we're just gonna put her away. So they tried to put me in a Salvation Army, in the homeless, in the crazy folks part. Escaped from them, and I went out on the streets and started using drugs. I got beat up by some drug dealers. The police took me from the hospital. They asked me, to have any family here? I told them no, because I didn't want my family to see me. I was beat up, had my eye busted, my jaw was knocked out of line, and I didn't want my kids to see me like that, so I told them I didn't have any family here, so they brought me to the homeless shelter. It was a different frame of mind for me. I wanted to forget. I didn't want to live, and so when I went out on the streets, I wanted to die before my husband died. I really wanted to die.
First, they need shelter, and they also are in need of food, sometimes clothing, and then once we get their basic needs met, we can start focusing on their emotional needs, their health needs.
I ended up living in my car with only my little dog. But I had no choice one day. I had no gasoline in my car. I had no food. I was sitting in a grocery store parking lot and not really knowing what to do. I begged and I thought, I know this man will help if I ask. And so I went to him as he approached the grocery store, and I said, sir, and I got the courage up to do it. I said, sir, I know you don't know me. I said, but I'm really down on my luck. And I said, could it be possible that you could just help me out with a few dollars? And that was my first time I tried to beg. And I picked the wrong person. He said, Jesus Christ. He said, now we have bums in this town. So I walked away. I went back to my car. I got the courage up to do it because I had no choice. She had an old red coat on, and she came up, and I asked her for help. And she cleaned out her purse. That got me food for my dog. It got me some food for me. I didn't shower very often, but when I did, I begged in front of a grocery store, and I found out you can get a shower at the YMCA for $3.
I remember the days that I crawled in and out of vacant apartment buildings to sleep. I was down to 106 pounds. I was wearing hand-me-down clothing. And I remember having to eat whatever they dished out, because I remember the first time this guy took me to a restaurant. He took me to the Matador for a Mexican meal, and I sat there and cried because I couldn't even eat the cheese. I hadn't had good food in such a long time. I mean, I was used to going to restaurants, but I had not eaten in a restaurant in such a long time. I didn't know what it felt like.
First of all, for the first 6 months, in depression, because depression had developed in my life, I was frightened, alone, beginning to feel all these feelings of anger and loss. Depression was beginning to take over what was left of my life. For 6 months, I drove around. I slept in the casino parking lot. I slept in the church parking lot. I slept in the Presbyterian church parking lot, the Methodist church parking lot, the Catholic church parking lot. I like to say I slept around with every religion in the county. And you're finding families living there. After 6 months of living in my car with only the dog and my clothes, I went to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which is very similar to the San Francisco Bay Bridge, just as high, with the full intention of ending my life. I, a successful man almost all my life, had now reached a point where there was no way out. I was tired of living. I wanted to disappear with the full intention of taking my life. And I walked out on that bridge after putting a bowl of water on the floorboard, a bowl of food on the floorboard, and a note on the dashboard that said, "This is my dog Willow. I call her the Wonder Dog. When you find her, please love her." As I reached to begin to climb over it in my mind, and only in my mind, because I could hear that little dog Willow barking in the distance. Come back, I need you. I want you to be back. And so that's what I did. Pushed myself back from that rail and ran off that bridge. I didn't know where I was going to go.
I had moved my kids from Michigan to Oklahoma City. I drove the truck myself. I had done a lot of things in my life, and to wind up living at a homeless shelter and not being able to move forward, I took my motivation. I just took it for granted. And I lost everything. And I had to start from scratch again and pick myself up. I'm glad that I knew I had it, because if I hadn't, I might still be here.